Thank you for flying with Thesis Airlines, and welcome to Flight 2024. Due to the cruising altitude of our flight, the use of portable electronic devices will not be permitted. Please keep your seatbelts fastened for the remainder of this flight.
Today, we will be visiting 3 places. First, we'll be stopping by the islands of Hawaii. Then we'll stop in southern Spain, and we will end close to home in New Orleans, Louisiana. Why are we going to these 3 places, though? Well, I have visited all 3 of these places, and I have seen firsthand how they have dealt with growing tourism industries. Different places have dealt with this differently, choosing either to protect their culture from exterior influences or promote it to the world. I have found that a balanced level of these 2 things will result in the highest level of perceived individuality of the culture. The tourist experiences a culture that is unique. Hawaii and Spain are at opposite ends, Hawaii protecting and Spain promoting, and New Orleans is somewhere in the middle, a more even balance. Looks like we're on our way to our first destination, Hawaii. The tourism and hospitality industry makes up 21% of Hawaii's economy. It is the largest industry on the islands. Visiting Hawaii, I did many of the typical tourist vacation things. My family drove around looking for secluded beaches, ate at nearby restaurants, and stopped at farmers markets and fresh fruit stands. We also participated in some of the more traditional aspects of Hawaii, including attending a luau, one made for tourists at least, where I participated in a canoe ride, spear throwing, lei making, and even holding a scarlet macaw for a photo. That photo could not be taken because I did drop the scarlet macaw, but none of these things are part of a traditional luau. And may I add, parrots do not even inhabit Hawaii in the wild. At this luau was where I first noticed the divide in cultures between the tourists and the locals. It seemed like we were almost living in 2 separate Hawaiis. In Hawaii, it felt like many of the experiences I had were facilitated and made for tourists like me. The geographic separation in Hawaii is very drastic, and there are communities built for tourists full of hotels, resorts, restaurants, and convenience stores, and then there are communities built for residents. And these 2 spheres seemingly do not overlap. I noticed this divide in restaurants also. Duke's is one of the most popular restaurants on the islands because of its casual Hawaiian feel and its accessibility. But rarely would a local be found there. The prices are so high that only a tourist would be willing to pay for it. My personal favorite, the sauteed mac nut and herb crusted fresh fish, being priced at $39 a plate. That's a lot to pay for a medium-sized piece of fish. It's also very accessible as well. Its Kauai location being within walking distance of several resorts, and its Oahu location being in the center of Waikiki in Honolulu, Hawaii's capital. As well as restaurants, I noticed this divide in convenience stores. ABC stores are spread throughout the islands, and they cater almost anything and everything a tourist would ever want, including free Hawaiian-themed mugs with purchases of $100 or more. Let's just say that my family went home with a couple mugs. But locals have no incentive to shop at ABC stores. They shop at their normal grocery stores and convenience stores located near where they live, unlike the ABC stores, which are conveniently located near hotels and resorts. ABC stores are to Hawaii as Starbucks is to New York City. In an effort to reunite the 2 groups, tourists and locals, Hawaii must become somewhere that both of these groups can participate in and benefit from. Hawaii has protected its culture in the past, shielding it from exterior influences. It allowed its local culture to modernize, while its tourist culture spiraled into a culture of its own. Looks like we're on our way to our second destination, southern Spain. So, in Hawaii, many of the experiences I had felt facilitated like they were made for tourists like me. But in Spain, I felt like I was able to get a general feel of the culture just by existing there. I got what Spain had to offer. But I didn't quite know what to do other than see the occasional landmark, like the tomb of Christopher Columbus, located in Seville's famous cathedral, or the bullfighting ring in Ronda. The geographic separation in Spain between tourists and locals is nowhere near that of Hawaii. It's much harder to tell who lives there and who is visiting. Stopping at a cafe for a late lunch one day in Marbella's Old Town, my family enjoyed a traditional Spanish meal of cheeses, chicken croquettes, potatoes, and chorizo. We took in the surrounding white buildings, narrow alleyways, cobblestone streets, and Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was playing as we ate our nice little lunch in this quaint Spanish cafe. I will say, it threw off the vibe a little bit. It made me wonder whether Michael Jackson was chosen to attract and appease tourists, or if it was a genuine part of Spanish society. Just about everywhere is now affected by globalization, and Spain is no exception. I did get to see some of the more traditional experiences in Spain, including the Catholic Holy Week processions. I visited over the week of Easter, and walking around Marbella's Old Town on the morning of Easter, my family followed a group of Spanish military men and women carrying instruments. We followed them to the Old Town's main square, where we saw this beautiful float emerge, carried by at least 20 men. Many other floats joined the procession, and we were able to witness this beautiful parade and celebration of Easter. But we never would have experienced this if we would not have just been in Marbella's Old Town that day. It was a religious event, but it was not promoted to tourists. In Spain, it was much harder for me to figure out who I was as an outsider. I didn't have a set itinerary almost given to me like I did in Hawaii. Now we're on our way to our third destination, New Orleans, Louisiana. In New Orleans, I don't think of myself much as a local, but I don't think of myself quite as a tourist either. My proximity to the city has allowed me to act as both, though. I can stop by the famous restaurants and see the famous landmarks, or I can stop by my favorite lunch spots and visit family. One of my favorite things to do in New Orleans is walk down Magazine Street. Its 6 miles of shops and restaurants are ranked as one of New Orleans' top tourist spots. But the area does not feel like it has been made for tourists. Just walking down Magazine Street, you can't really tell who lives there and who's just visiting. One of New Orleans' top tourist draws, as we all know, is Mardi Gras and the abundant festivities that come along with the season. Locals channel their energy into parades, balls, decorations, and much more. I've been to a couple parades in New Orleans, the most memorable being Endymion. I was probably 9 here, and this picture is blurry because it was taken at night, probably on an iPhone 4. But this was one of my most memorable experiences in New Orleans. I saw float after float pass by, what seemed like hundreds of them. The music from each float blended into the next, and beads and random trinkets sprayed from the floats to packed sidewalks and balconies. And I was a little bit in shock. I acted as a tourist in this case, an outsider to the Mardi Gras world. But this is exactly what Mardi Gras was meant to be, a spectacle for both tourists and locals to participate in. New Orleans has grown with tourism in mind by maintaining its unique culture, but also by creating new reasons for people to visit. Whenever I travel, I aim to live like a local, doing the things and experiencing what a local would do on a daily basis. I want to get the real feel of the area, not necessarily what the area wants me to see as a tourist. Because of these 3 travels and my other travels, I have been able to grow my knowledge and gain this perspective. But you do not need to share these experiences to share this perspective. We want to experience unique cultures when we travel. Knowing how to share a culture with the world without disconnecting from it or cutting it off or changing it significantly is what will promote the highest level of perceived individuality of the culture. The culture is kept unique, but it is not cut off from the world. Balance within a region is important because it maintains the unique culture of the area and in turn promotes continued tourism and travel. I have found that the greatest level of individuality and authenticity perceived by the tourist is because of this balance in protecting and promoting the culture.